Good morning. Good morning. This is June the 11th, 2019, and we are still in this It Will Never Happen to Me by Claudia Black. And when we left off, we were on chapter 8, I believe, if I remember. Let's see here. Well, come on now. Okay, we left off on for helping the professionals, so we might be able to get through this here today. So I'm going to head start reading for the helping professionals. Millions of children of alcoholics need the resources and skills of helping agencies and professionals. All helping professionals should address themselves to what can be or they can do to provide answers for the problems children of alcoholics face, and determine how they can become actively involved in implementing the solutions. There is no one particular type of professional nor any single agency totally responsible for helping children of alcoholics. All must accept the responsibility. Time is very precious to everyone, but if one is going to be an effective counselor, it is necessary to take extra time to better understand children of alcoholics and to talk with them, to become more familiar with avenues of help and to avoid or to aid them in developing additional resources. Helping persons, professionals, paraprofessionals, and volunteers working in jobs where they naturally come in contact with children are primary resources for children of alcoholics. Private and public service agencies, family and children agencies, child guidance clinics, medical health agencies, youth agencies, juvenile justice systems, etc., provide wide range of services from foster care to individual and family therapy, specialized services for the physically and sexually abused. Recreational services, drop-in centers, Big Brother and Big Sister models, all of the people involved in such work are primary resource candidates for children of alcoholics. Booz Allen Hamilton Incorporated report on assessment of the needs for children of alcoholics in 1974 summarized resources when they said all children go to school. Most families have a family doctor, and some families go to church. After the nuclear and extended family, children look next to these general community contacts, schools, doctors, and churches for values and behavior standards and or for help with their problems. These resources are in a position to, 1, recognize family problems when they occur, 2, identify alcoholic abuse, be in a position to refer them, support the alcoholic in treatment. 3, provide assistance and referral for the non-alcoholic spouse. And 4, intervene and provide protection for the child when necessary. 5, often moral support and encouragement and provide short-term counseling. 6, assist the child in connecting with other needed resources. Children must believe that a resource has something to offer, will be there, and can be counted on when needed. If a resource is patronizing, stigmatizing, or ineffective, the child will not attempt to get help a second time. To become an effective resource for children of alcoholics, you must continue to learn all you can about alcoholism, how it affects the alcoholic, how the family is affected. The more one knows about alcoholism, the easier it will be to discuss difficult problems in a non-judgmental, non-blaming manner. As you, the resource person, come to better understand alcoholism and begin to discuss it easily and openly, you will be perceived as a reliable resource, and children will be more willing to take the risk of talking about their problems with you. It is not enough merely to be aware that AA, Al-Anon, and Alateen exist. You must have an understanding of how they work. Again, attend meetings. Many meetings are open to interested persons. Call the central office listed in the telephone directory for information about the respective services. Be familiar with the places and time of local meetings. A resource needs to understand what AA's 12 steps are and should be familiar with the idea of sponsorship. A resource should know what the big book is. You will not be a variable resource unless you are familiar with and acquire the necessary understanding to discuss these concepts. The same principles regarding attendance of meetings applies not only to those in need, but also to the resource people. That is, you must attend more than one meeting in order to understand these self-help programs and how you can use this knowledge to help children of alcoholics. Excuse me. While the value of self-help groups is easily apparent, unfortunately, the use of Alateen by children of alcoholics is low. It is estimated that only 3 to 5% of children in the appropriate age group from alcoholic homes use Alateen. These children do not attend meetings for various reasons. Many times meetings are not readily available in their communities. They can't find the transportation. Parents won't allow them to go. They are under the appropriate age, and perhaps the most frequent excuse, their own denial gets in the way. I don't need that stuff. My dad doesn't bother me. I don't bother him. Or they really wouldn't understand. My home situation is different, not like theirs. So while some of these excuses are valid, others can be remedied. When Alateen is not available in a community, a meeting can be formed when 2 or more children of alcoholics band together with an adult AA and Al-Anon sponsor and begin an Alateen group. When transportation is a problem, arrangements can usually be made with other group members to share rides. Education and information are keys to overcoming those objections which discount Alateen as a resource. Potential resources are, in fact, many times not able to perform adequately because the question of alcoholism in the family has not been identified. Or if it has been identified, the impact on the family has been discounted. For a period of 6 months, I consulted my telephone with a big brother of a 13-year-old boy whose father was an alcoholic. The big brother's willingness to learn about alcoholism and his interest in understanding the youngster's denial process was vital to creating a positive and consistent role model in this youngster's life. The big brother was many times frustrated with the child's aloneness, unwillingness to get close and to trust. This was a big brother who had not understood the dynamics of alcoholism in the family, would probably have terminated the relationship with this youngster, creating another opportunity for the child to be rejected. A social worker who was a caseworker in a county juvenile detention center told of how she repeatedly worked with several children from the same family because of their delinquent behavior. Physical abuse by the father was identified. Alcohol abuse was mentioned several times by the children. Children were dealt with individually, not as a family unit. And the father's treatment for alcoholism was not considered as a remedy for the physical abuse or the children's behavior. The drinking was never discussed in a manner which could have identified it as an alcoholic drinker. Thus, the dynamics of alcoholism and how they contribute to the delinquent behavior of the children were left unexplored and unthreatened. Had the social worker been knowledgeable about alcoholism, the correct resources could have been utilized and the children helped to be a healthier lifestyle. It should be standard procedure for professionals in the helping professions to ascertain the drinking practices of the family. If the client is an adult, the drinking practices of the family during the client's childhood should also be investigated. The client many times will not volunteer information about alcoholism to the helping professional. This may be due to the denial system, which may still persist, or may be due to lack of knowledge about alcoholism. Therefore, direct questions such as the following usually lead to invalid answers. Is there alcoholism in your family? Do you think one of your parents is alcoholic? Do you think you are an alcoholic? The interviewer can many times identify alcoholic drinking in the family by gathering information relating to the drinking patterns, rather than by referring to the family member for the diagnosis. Clients and their situations differ. Each case requires a methodology of its own. The following are sample questions which, when integrated into the therapy process after some trust for the professional has been established, will lead to ascertaining the normality of drinking. In asking about parental drinking, how often did your mother or dad drink? Did you find yourself responding differently to your parents, depending on whether or not they are drinking? Do or did you ever get scared about your parents' behavior, such as drinking and driving or violence, when a parent is drinking? Questions regarding drinking patterns. How often do you drink? How much do you drink? Do you experience any problem with not remembering periods of time when you are drinking? Has anyone, a friend, child, parent, spouse, ever commented to you about the amount you drink or how you act when you drink? The answers will vary. As you increase your knowledge of the disease of alcoholism, you will begin to better evaluate your client's responses and will be able to determine if the responses identify alcoholism. Remember, a person who is an alcoholic or the spouse of the alcoholic may also be the child of as well. It will be appropriate to discover if this is so and to talk with them about alcoholism as it relates to the fact that they may always have existed in the alcoholic system. Some helping professionals become aware of alcoholism in the home and immediately feel overwhelmed with their own powerlessness. Thus, professionals must know that even though they may not be able to change the home situation, they can alter and positively affect how the child feels about himself. By not ignoring the information the child volunteers, the professional is saying, "You are important to me. You are of value." By actively listening, by validating feelings, and by making referrals, much can be accomplished in helping the child to recover. Even 10 or 15 minutes a week spent in concentrated effort can have a tremendous positive effect on a child's life. Part of the key will be in trying not to alter the family, but rather in helping the child to clarify and validate his or her own experiences. In doing this, the child of the alcoholic will be less confused and not so consumed with guilt, and will feel less anger, fear, shame, loneliness, and powerlessness. For professionals in the school system, schools are the resources which have the greatest access to the larger number of children. For that reason alone, they are an extremely viable resource for the identification of a child of an alcoholic. If you are a concerned teacher, counselor, or administrator, you are in a position to impact children individually through direct contact or in large numbers by impacting the school system. Teachers can recognize children who have problems at home through an assessment of their behavior. Children who have problems with their schoolwork, children who come to school sleepy or ill-clad, children who are too good to be true, are rarely children who may speak about the subject directly. Teachers often overhear the children say to each other on the playground or in the hallways. Impressions are formed and pieces of the puzzle fit together. Often it seems apparent that little can be done to change the home environment, but simply being willing to listen to the child, offering them your understanding of their situation, or by simply giving solace, you can provide relief for the child in need. Offering a child validation honestly and sincerely is offering them hope. Counselors are in a better position to discuss issues about the home directly. Principals are in a position to see that staff members are appropriately trained to be more effective resources, and all staff and faculty are in a position to ask the administration for assistance in utilizing outside resources to assist in identifying these children and appropriate referral networks. School systems need encouragement to implement curriculums which focus on alcoholism. Such formats are being developed which allows school districts to spend anywhere from $100 to $2,500 to address children in kindergarten through 12th grade. These programs often focus on 1, basic education, 2, values and clarification, 3, responsible decision making, and 4, self-concept. Along with many of the curriculums, connecting support systems are developed with outside agencies, often alcoholism counselors and counsels, to aid in the training and the implementation of such programs. It is not as feasible for a school system to implement its own program without the assistance of training and support by the alcoholism community. While school education is a very important tool for primary prevention of future school abuse, the key to its effectiveness is consistency and comprehensiveness. The child living in the alcoholic home is more apt to identify himself or herself. Once an understanding of alcoholism has been gained, support groups for children of alcoholics are being developed and conducted by many schools across the nation. Some of the groups are peer-led, others are led by community volunteers or school persons, and these groups are not called therapy groups, but are generally identified as rep groups drop-in groups, and support groups. Some children living in an alcoholic home can readily be identified because the alcoholic is in a treatment facility, or because the spouse and children talk openly about the drinking. Other children are recognized as being from problematic homes due to their appearance, which indicates physical neglect, their academic performances, their poor social skills, or evident physical abuse. However, the majority of children of alcoholics are not so readily identifiable. Discussing alcoholism in a safe and non-threatening manner will allow that child to give you some indication that alcohol is a problem in their home. When school teachers ask me how to identify children of alcoholics, I suggest they ask the question, what do you know about alcoholism? An elementary education teacher in Southern California asked her class of fourth graders to draw a picture of an alcoholic. One child drew a picture and added words. When a person has been drinking after they get off work, they come home and they say mean things to their wife, and then they slap one of the kids. Obviously, this child has had firsthand experience with abuse, probably alcoholic drinking. The child who said an alcoholic is a bum had only heard about the physically stereotyped skid row alcoholic. And the child drew a picture saying an alcoholic is a person who drinks so much that when they drive, they often kill people. Might have been exposed to an education class regarding drinking and driving, or to an alcoholic awareness class depicting this consequence of drinking, or may know of such an incident through personal experience or through the media. Children of alcoholics will be much easier to identify when we talk more openly about alcoholism. Look for the signs of the effects of alcoholism in the children and then listen to what they have to say. For professionals in the alcoholism field, in addition to self-help groups, alcoholism treatment programs are in an excellent position to offer professional resources for children of alcoholics. While the primary goal of all alcoholism treatment programs is the achievement and the maintenance of sobriety for the alcoholic, these programs recognize and are beginning to develop services for the alcoholic's entire family. In the past 10 years, treatment facilities have particularly escalated services to address the spouse. Much of the work enables the spouse to better understand both the alcoholic and the disease process, with more effect now being directed to help the spouse understand his or her own co-alcoholism. Most programs have not yet expanded services to address the young, adolescent, or adult children. It is vital that specific groups be developed in educational and therapy modes, and that the groups focus on the family disease process. It is also important that such therapy be offered to all family members. Young, adolescent, and adult children need information and therapy provided in a safe environment, an environment in which they can learn about the disease process and ultimately receive help for themselves. Children need to be addressed separately from their parents. They must be able to effectively focus on their own guilt, anger, fear, loneliness, and denial without the stiffening influence of a parent's presence. By the time many alcoholics seek help, their children or their adults, these now adult children must also play an active role in the family recovery program. Through their participation, these adult children will become will come to have a better understanding of themselves and hopefully lead happier, fuller lives. In my work with inpatient alcoholic treatment programs, I strongly encourage, no demanded, that the adult child be a part of the family recovery program. I met with each child individually and had them share their situations, problems, and lives with me. I believe if they had not been involved in a therapeutic process, they would have little understanding about themselves and would continue to live their lives not talking, not feeling, and not trusting, but merely surviving in lives filled with voids and gaps. Many times, such a treatment program is the turning point in the lives of children of alcoholics. Not only might their parents get sober and stay sober, but wonderfully, the child themselves may begin their own recovery process. Summary. It is of paramount importance that resources for children do not underestimate the impact they have on a child. No matter how limited in power or time resources perceive themselves to be, I believe very few helping professionals will ever have all the ideal means, the staff, space, money, or time necessary to develop the number of comprehensive services desired. But if each assesses what can be done with the means at hand, they can actualize resources on the spot. With even a little greater effort, intermediate and long-range goals can be developed. To say we just can't do it at all is delinquent behavior on your part, which really says we don't care enough. Everyone can do slightly more than they are doing right now. Doing slightly more means possibly 1, talking with a family member, being willing to talk to a daughter's friend, asking the board you sit on to address the issue, asking a clergy person to address this issue with peers or in a family group, asking a doctor to see the child or children when alcoholism is identified in the adult, expanding questions in intake procedures to better ascertain possible alcoholism, discussing alcoholism when identified, referring to appropriate treatment when necessary, developing specific treatment for children of alcoholics, and expanding individual and group services to this specific client population. These actions take a willingness to become involved, a willingness to help improve the quality of someone else's life. Children of alcoholics will be adequately addressed and helped only when we, lay people and professionals alike, all begin to take responsibility. Everyone who has access to the child needs to take some responsibility. Resources also need to be supportive to each other. Keep in mind, some programs are structured in such a way that they can do little work with children. Other programs may be able to work more extensively with children, but all programs have access to either the young, adolescent, or adult child from many alcoholic homes. If you are willing to ask yourself what help you can provide within the structure of your program, then you are taking the first step. Last but least, the epilogue. Shortly after I began, it will never happen to me, I also initiated an original and extensive research project related to children of alcoholics. In this research, I am attempting to establish new facts and to clarify existing information. I'm hoping to ascertain possible predicting variables that may influence one child versus another to become alcoholic or to marry an alcoholic. I wanted more knowledge regarding why it is that some children do not continue to become alcoholic or marry an alcoholic, and if they do not, are these identifiable primary problem areas for the specific child. I proceeded to acquire information from a sample group of over 400 adult children of alcoholics and established a control group sample of people not raised in alcoholic homes so that I might compare the data. While I have been seeking to obtain information that I believe will be of great interest to the reader, I have not incorporated this data into the book, other than for Spartaning excerpts in the family violence chapter, as the research is not yet complete. Yet there are a few items that I think are of interest that I would like to share. As I suspected, my research indicates that children are not more likely to become alcoholic when mom is an alcoholic versus dad. Some professionals say that considering the greater amount of time that children spend with their mothers rather than fathers, that they would be more severely affected. However, when the sex of the alcoholic parent was singled out, that statement did not prove to be true. Research indicates that aside from the sex of the alcoholic parent, other variables have greater predicting factors. While I was aware of the tendency of daughters to marry alcoholic men, I was surprised to see that some of the alcoholic parents marry women who become or are alcoholics with the same frequency. In asking about role identification, nearly all respondents identified with not one role, but a combination of at least two roles. Over 63% of the sample saw themselves as very sensitive young people, often placating. They combined that placating role with being responsible, or committed their extreme sensitivity with problematic behavior. 60% saw themselves as very mature young people, identifying themselves with being responsible. 43% said they had excellent adjusting abilities. Pragmatic children were in the minority, with only 21% of the group identifying with such behavior. I'm finding this research most exciting. I believe it will offer all of us more specific information. I hope to begin publication of this data in the near future. As I was working on the research, and it will never happen to me, I have continued to provide training seminars across the nation. I am very pleased with the increasingly interest and concern for children of alcoholics and the growing number of resources available to them. Private therapists are seeking for more information, identifying alcoholics in the family, and working with the appropriate issues. Clergy people and physicians are talking to their congregations and clients more openly and directly. Schools are more willing and less fearful to identify a role they can play, and the alcoholism field is expanding their concept of family to mean more than spouse. There is much more information to be generated and resources to be developed, but the process has begun. Children of alcoholics are the identifiable group with special needs who can be addressed and will be addressed and are being helped. And that's the end. Ho, ho, ho. Extremely, very, very interesting. So that means that starting Thursday, which is just a couple of days away, we will be starting on a new book, which I really enjoyed. And maybe some of you have heard of it. It's called The Celestine Prophecy. It's quite an interesting book. And I'm going to see if I can get that a little bit closer. You might be able to read the manuscript there. It's just a fun book, actually. And it was one of those books that, as they say, I'm not going to read that. I'm just going to hold that up there for a second. Anyway, that's what we're going to start reading on Thursday. I think everybody will find it very interesting. So I'm going to put my marker in there and we'll start that out. So this particular segment was just a little bit shorter, only because we got to the end pretty fast. And I would simply prefer to go ahead and start that book on Thursday instead of starting it now. I think that'll just work out better. But anyway, I want to thank all those that visit my site. I look forward to those that do enjoy what I'm doing. Come back and listen some more if these books that I'm reading have any interest for you. And other than that, I think I'm just going to close it out and tell everybody that I love you all and have a great and fantastic day. Thank you for coming. Bye-bye.